So again, I will also put my calendar will be going in there where you can get directly a hold of me via my calendar that will be posted constantly through there as well, and with the questions. So we're going to try to answer questions throughout the presentation. And after that, we'll ask any questions afterwards. We will answer them at that point in time. So everyone's feeling these days, there's a lot of anxiety out there between COVID-19, the markets, and any of the other major headlines that are going on. And this evening, I'll be touching on a few of these issues to ease your mind a little bit. And near the end of the webinar, I will share tips that will be valuable to all of you. So I'm sure you're going to get at least one gold nugget from this that will be very helpful to you all. So we have one more minute to go, and then we're going to start here. We're starting to still see people coming in, and we're at 6:30. So I am going to introduce myself. So can everybody see me? If you can see me, press 1. Perfect, awesome. Thank you. So we know that the chat's working, and which is really important. I have to say I'm so excited to presenting today from my house to yours. It's something different that I never thought that I would be jumping in so soon with the technology, but I'm loving it. So I'm a newbie to this, so bear with me. I love what I do. I love working with my clients. I love working with my team. I call them the dream team. I'm so grateful for what I do and enjoying what I do. The technology that we're using today is Zoom, as you all know, and it's enables us to communicate with everyone worldwide. So it's great tools to use to communicate during this time. I'm speaking to you because I find that it's very important that people know how important financial independence is. My clients share it with me all the time. So I find that financial independence is important, and my clients knowing where their retirement paycheck is coming from and that it's lasting throughout their entire lives. So my business and practice is built around helping people feel secure and confident in reaching them, helping them reach their financial goals and being part of it. So currently we are facing some obstacles, that's no secret. The COVID-19 pandemic, the oil prices, the markets. Ladies and gentlemen, we will get through this. So it's just going to be time, and it's usually generally a shorter time, but we will get through this. I'm reaching out at this point in time to many of my clients, and that's a number of reasons why, and it's priority, especially when the markets are not as friendly as I would say as in the past. So discussing how they're doing and getting through the COVID-19, do they need any help? Having the conversations of the opportunities on how I can enrich their lives. Can I reduce their income taxes at this time? Could I trigger capital losses and shelter future gains? Could I look at sheltering some growth and tax-free savings or adding more to their investments? Those are amongst the conversations that we're having at this point in time with our clients. My question is are you having those conversations? And how are you doing and how you're going through this all? So I hope you're all doing safe and healthy, and that you are having those conversations. So before we dive deep into the presentation, I just want to have time just to share a story that I think that some of you that will resonate at this point in time. Recently, the March 31st statements have come out, and individuals are shocked or concerned or scared because those values are down. I had a client that asked me if I would sit down with her sister and her brother-in-law for the fact that their portfolio seemed to be down a lot more than theirs. So didn't know much about them, sat down via Zoom, just very similar like this, and realized that after doing the financial analysis that they weren't diversified, that they had weren't maximizing the tax-free savings account. Their passive income in their business was never discussed, and their assets in their business and their personal account were not protected, as well as that their financial advisor retired and all they have been receiving is emails from their new advisor. To say the least, we ended up putting a plan together. We're in the process of implementing these savings that will save them thousands of dollars between now and the end of the year. So at that point in time, this client that is now a client, they are now, they were brave enough to get a second opinion, and now they're saving thousands of dollars, and it was worth their while at this point in time. Okay. So I'd like to officially introduce myself. I'm Brenda Jackson. I'm a senior financial consultant with IG Wealth Management for over 26 years. I'm also a division director who manages in Edmonton and in the surrounding areas. So I am a certified financial planner and have been for over 20 years, as well as a registered retirement consultant, which is very relevant for this, this webinar today. And I grew up in Northern Ontario, and I reside in Sturgeon County with my family. And I am married and have 4 boys. Yes, 4 boys. I am busy. So when markets are turbulent, keeping a long-term focus on your financial goals are more important than ever. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss how a holistic financial plan can help you weather through the storm. So we're going to cover current market conditions, what is relevant today, staying the course, which is most important, strategies to navigate through turbulent times, and IG Wealth Management's approach, how we manage. So we all have been a part of markets, and I'm sure in market volatility, the only constant is change. So you've seen some sharp up and downs in the last little while, with March 23rd being the lowest point, and the market's now up 30% just from that. So we're seeing some uncertainty here, and a lot has to do with the COVID-19 and emotions and uncertainty. So we've all been part of it, so we just have to stay the course, and we're going to discuss the past markets. So for the last 11 years, we've been enjoying one of the longest economic expansions in the biggest bull market in history. But you wouldn't have known that on March 9th, 2009. And I'm sure some of you remember that day when a lot was happening. Everything was on the headlines, every social media, TV, newspapers, everything. On that day, the S&P 500 index was down by 50% from its previous high. And people believed that capitalism had failed. Taxpayer dollars were being used to bail out the global financial system, and forecast for the future was bleak. There was little optimism for the stock market, and it was believed the economies wouldn't grow for many years to come. So as you can see on your right-hand side, so you'll see this little red dot here. So I'm going to be using this throughout the presentation. We're going to look at this chart because the forecast was completely wrong. The S&P 500 from that date shot up to 350%. And if those people who panicked and thought the bull had died and got out of the market, well, they would never have recovered. So perhaps that bull did not die. Perhaps he was just, as I said, tired and needed a nap. Since March 9th, 2009, investors have lived in the constant fear of the next crisis. When is something going to happen? I'm sure you're going to end up seeing some of these slides here that headlines that maybe you read during this time through social media, daily news, that we endured many of these events seemed at the time were to be permanent barriers to the future financial success. In each one of these instances, and many other, the first reaction of the stock market is to decline, but then markets eventually rebound. In fact, over the oncoming cycle or crisis and recovery, markets have continued to reach new highs. Oh, I got a question here. I would like to ask, okay, can we talk? Okay, thank you, Suzanne. There is a question. So somebody posted a question on the chat. For those of you who weren't there at the beginning, what we're doing is if you have a touch screen or if you have a mouse, click or touch the screen. You'll see a little box that will be chat. You can touch that. A little window will come up and you can ask the question. So the question was, can we talk after your webinar? You definitely can. So there's going to be a link that's going to be in the chat where I'll have in there as well. If we're not able to chat, that you can click on it, copy paste it and put it into your browser, or you can actually ask a question through this. Okay, well, thank you for the question. So the sum of all fears, what does that mean? For those who have globally diversified their portfolio to December 31st, 2008 to December 31st, 2019. So 11 years, as seen on this slide, had excellent rates of return in the market. Now, the S&P 500, so the US, 15.3%. The world market, 12.5%. The European market, 8.9%. The Canadian market, 9.2%. So if you just had 25% in each of those areas, so 25% in those markets, you would have averaged 11.3% compounded annual rate of return over that 11-year period. Again, 11.3% compounded annually over that 11-year period. Excellent, excellent rate of return, especially when you're in low inflation. It's a big disconnect. The larger issue is that hardly anybody got that. And why? So let's look at the cost of opportunity lost. And a lot of people may look at this slide and say, what the heck is this? So here we're looking at cash flows of the US equity and fixed income markets. So, and what it is that on the bottom, you can see where the equity market outflows. So people are panicking and they're getting out of the market where you see all the downfalls. And then the total for the year. On the top where you see the blue, or whatever color is coming in on your screen, you're seeing where there are inflows to the fixed income. People are flooding into the fixed income. So if we go back to the slide that we previously were at, and we stayed into the market, remember it was 11%? 11%. My argument is this. People right here that got out of the market and panicked, they lost a huge opportunity because they got out of the market, which is not the best move, and it cost them a huge amount. So the question is, and the question that we get, which is common, is how bad will this get? We're dealing with COVID-19, a global health pandemic. People are dying. Economies are shutting down. But what you're seeing right now is a lot of the stimulus with the government that are putting money back into it. We haven't had so much like this before. The government is trying to keep the liquidity up so it doesn't cause a depression. You're starting to see the markets from March 23rd to now up 30%. A lot has happened, but they're not telling you all that good news. But with COVID-19, what's happening is that there's a lot of uncertainty. And when there's uncertainty in the markets will decline. And we know they'll do that for the short term because it's unpredictable. But what we do know is that over the long term, markets are predictable and they are positive. So let's look at the market recovers despite volatility. Let's focus on this $10,000. So we're going to look at investing that $10,000 from 1956 to 2019. What did that actually grow to? Keep in mind, as we're going up here, I have circled the lows, the lowest point in the market at that point in time. But keep in mind, there has been 24 market corrections between 1956 and 2019. And as we go up here, and we haven't added a penny more $2.2 million. That's the growth. Again, 10,000 didn't add a dollar more, and it's $2.2 million. So that was an annual rate of return of 8.93%. Okay, so right here, as you can see, as I mentioned, the red little circles here. This is when people are feeling sick. So about the same time as what people are feeling about right now. You feel that the world is ending. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportune time to invest. You heard buying low? Well, this is that time. This is when we reach out to our clients to say, this is an opportunity for you. So throughout history, equity markets have experienced periods of volatility, and despite this, they continue to be resilient. Staying the course is extremely important during this time of volatility, as it enables investors to fully recover from these periods and achieve long-term investment goals. Now, the question that I like to ask is that if you were to go back in time, knowing what you know now, how would you have capitalized on the downturns in the past? Take a minute. What would you do? Okay, so I'm sure most of you have answered, if I had more money, I would have bought more. Or two, I wouldn't have sold back in those days. And you're absolutely right. So what is the 70-year advantage? Again, another slide here. But again, it's giving you the details. It's informing you, it's educating you of what the markets have done. So from 1926 to 2019. So we're looking at a 92-year span. So as you can see on my screen, it's gray onto the left side of the screen. Those are negative rates of return. And then on the blue, you have the positive rates of return. But let's look at the negative rates of return first. So if you have 0 to negative 10%, and you can see all those years, but if you can see onto your right, the positive 0 to 10%, it's exactly the same, right? Now, let's look at negative 10 to negative 20. You can see there's only 5 years that experienced in there, 5 years. So if we go to the 10 to 20% in the positive years, 25% greater, and a lot more years again, 25% more. Now, if we just go to the 0 to 10%, and then you keep on going down, 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 of course, the return is a heck of a lot more. Now, if we go to the positive, the 20 to 30%, it's still higher than the 0 to 10%. And then if you go to the 30 and 40%, well, you know, that's where it starts to equalize out. Okay? So the bottom line is that in those 92 years, 74% of the time, markets were positive, which is great probability. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay the course. So this slide is great. It's not just about a lot of pretty polka dots in here. It is, I like it because it's a little technical. So what you're doing is you're looking at the calendar returns of the S&P 500 from 1980 to 2019. And there's a lot of data in here, so I'm going to try to simplify it for you. So the red dots right here are the intra-year declines, the bottom of the market of that calendar year, the lowest point of that calendar year. Now, on the other side, above the medium, you'll see the blue. You'll see on my graph, it's blue. You'll see where the calendar year ended up. So if we look down below at the negative, you'll see every single year had a negative time within that period, that calendar year. But if you look at the positive, you see it most of the time if the outcome has been positive with a few negative years in there, which is to be expected. So I'm going to give you a scenario here when we're talking about markets and try to give you, a visual on staying in the market and the effects if you did not. So let's look in 2002. Some of you may have remembered that. Markets were down negative 30%. If someone panicked and got out of the market and never got into 2000 until after 2003, because when you're getting out of the market, you have to be right 2 times: when to get out of the market and when to get in, which is difficult. So timing the market's almost impossible. So here, if this person ended up getting out and never got in until after 2003, they would have lost out on a 56% increase. Why would anybody do that? It's devastating. They're not getting the advice. They're not getting someone to help them along and help them understand. 2008, very close. We have been there. Most of us remember it because it doesn't seem, even though it's 12 years ago, it doesn't seem like that many years ago. It went down 50%. Can you imagine someone getting out the lowest time of that in 2008 year and never got in till after 2010, 2009 even? Ouch. It would kill the portfolio. You have to stay invested. Oh, we got another question here. Okay, Tim, can you share your top 3 strategies for lowering taxes? Yes, we're going to be sharing those at the end of the presentation, but thank you for the question. And if anybody else would like to have a question, again, all you have to do is, if you have a touch screen, touch it or click on it with your mouse and you'll see an icon that says chat, and you can enter your question in there. Thank you. All right, next slide. So what can you do now to protect your retirement paycheck? Let's review some of the strategies. So number 1, have a plan and stick to it. Our clients have a plan, they stick to it, we monitor it, update, explain it, meet with them regularly, we educate them, they understand the markets on what they do. My question to you is, do you have a plan? Does your advisor meet with you regularly? Are you fearful right now? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself. These questions should be clear to you. Number 2, ensure you're properly diversified, making sure you don't have all your eggs in one basket, so one asset class or country. Remember, Canada only represents less than 3% of the world market. Invest for the long term. We just covered this. Folks, we just covered this. Invest for the long term. You don't need any more proof. We went through that. Stay invested. Determine your retirement income withdrawal strategy. Oh my goodness, so many people miss out on this and they do it incorrectly. And we're going to have examples of this later on. This is huge. So how do we make the best of your money? We determine the income required from all the sources, and then we look at the strategies. Take professional advice, very important. What does planning mean to you? Are you having any planning, which covers everything from your investments, taxes, estate, and so on? Wealthsimple, Questrade are fine, but they're not planning for you and your family. They're not preventing you from making emotional decisions, and they certainly are not explaining tax and estate implications. Where are they now? Remember, you're in retirement mode. You're not very far from it. If you're attending this presentation today, you're not very far from retirement. So the decisions that you make today are going to be very crucial, because most people can only retire one time. We deal with people that are retiring all the time for the last 26 years. We're here for you. So what does peace of mind look like in retirement? Well, it's going to look different to different people. But this is what we do know. We know that Canadians are living much longer than they did a decade ago. Our parents were outliving even our parents and our grandparents and great-grandparents. Medical advances are doing wonders. So this means that when you're looking at retirement, you're going to be retired for 20, 30, 40, or even more years, which requires planning. So it was funny because I was discussing this chart with a colleague and I had to laugh, and he's like, I still can't believe that women are outliving men. Why is that? And then he chuckled and he said, I know why. And I said, okay, why? He says, because women they need to have some peace and quiet after their husbands pass. So I thought that was actually funny, but I didn't agree. I just laughed. So again, this chart here is showing that even though the lifespan for a man is 83 and a female is 86, 50% of people age 60 are living longer than that. So again, it's so prudent that you plan till at least after 90. We have to ensure well-defined plans are being in place for our families. We don't want to outlive our money. We want our money to outlive us. So let's have some fun, some questions here. So you don't need to answer this. You don't have to write it down. You can just do this in your head. So it's just, you know, when we're talking about the cost of things, on how they've gone up over time, which is inflation. Let's see how you do. So we have French fries today, $1.79. 1960, 15 cents. Well, let's have a burger to go with that. Let's see how much that would cost. 15 cents, so 30 cents for a meal. Wow. Fish burger, don't ask me why the fish burger's on here, but it is 24 cents. What about the cheeseburger? 20 cents. And of course, we have to have the milkshake, and the milkshake, 22 cents. So the cost is 10 times as much. This is the effect of inflation. So inflation is reality, and the longer you live, the bigger the impact. So it has to be built into your plans. Other concerns. So if you retired this year, this is going to be a good example of it, because poor early performance can alter your retirement plan. A market downturn at the beginning of your retirement can have a big effect on your future income. It's like pushing one of those big boulders up the hill. It's tough. Even if you can, you most likely won't be able to do it, but it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard. So how do you reduce this risk? What about diversification? So let's look at the world of averages. So let's use this example. So we have $100,000 here for easy calculations. You'll notice that all the figures are easy. So here, $100,000. We have 5%, so we're earning 5% average annual return. And we are withdrawing $600 out monthly starting at age 65. So that 100,000 will deplete by age 89. Now let's look at the sequence of return, which is much more important. So the first, we're going to look at clockwise. So the first year you retire is 5%. The second year is -15. The third year is 25. And then again, 5%. You're still averaging 5%. What would that look like? Because we know that you're not going to have 5% consistently every year. When you're using just averages, it's almost impossible. So the sequence of return is very important that you calculate that into your program. So again, these rates of returns are extreme, but it's just for example purposes. Where does that $100,000 go, and how long does it last? 83, it's depleting, it's gone, right? So it's shortened. So now let's look at the reverse, counterclockwise. Say if you started at 5%, and then it went up to 25%, and then -15, and then back to 5. You're still averaging 5%. But it's the years that you have those rates of return. What does that look like? Where's that 100,000 now? Age 87, right? So there is a difference in how the rate of return is being calculated. So, I have a question right here. Let me see if I can answer it. Okay, should I? So Sasha asked, how would you use home equity in retirement? That is a really good question. And I believe that would be something that we would talk on a one-to-one basis on that, because it is definitely for some people and some people it's not. It all depends on your personal situation. But there is options with home equity, definitely. But there are some red flags in doing so. So you'll see on the chat, again, if you'd like to chat, I have a question. If you put your finger or your mouse on the screen, you'll see the chat button, click it, and the chat will come up and you can ask the questions. Thank you, Sasha. We'll have the calendar in there. You can just copy it and paste it into your browser, and we'll be happy to get back to you on that, but thank you. We got another question from Tom. Should I take my pension as a lump sum? Tom, that's a really good question. Yes and no. An analysis definitely has to be done on that, and it's on a personal situation, personal circumstances. So again, that would be something that we would discuss one-to-one. So again, my calendar is in the chat. Just copy and paste it into your browser. But thank you for the good questions. So let's go back to retirement sustainability. So let's look at, hypothetically, if we have 5% withdrawal rate. So we want to take 5% out of our investments. And so that would be 5% out of the capital. So we have adjusted for inflation. So we have a portfolio that's 50% equity, 50% fixed income. And we have a hypothetical rate of return of 5.9%. And we start at 500,000. Now, lasting to age 100 here, we're using the law of averages. Now, let's go to the next slide. Look at how pretty that is. So those are all colors, so hopefully you can see it. And this is our program. This is what IG Wealth uses. Our system, we work with our clients to build their living plan, and we look at all variabilities, all the probabilities. So you can see the potential outcomes from the last 6 slides that we just discussed, because you can't make that same rate of return every single year. So looking at variabilities and probabilities, you can see here on this slide, you can see all the ways that the outcomes could come out. So we know that markets are going to fluctuate. We know that there's a lot of good, but we know that there's some not so good stuff out there. So it's important to have the probability. So what is your probabilities in your plan? Or are you just planning with the average rates of return? A question that you should be asking yourself. So diversification works. I'm sure we've all heard this terminology before, diversification. And we can't get enough of it because it's true. It's true. So, but you know, I have to laugh because diversification is different things to different people. So the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You spread the money over different businesses, different countries, to avoid your money being affected by one single event. In retirement, it works to a little bit different because it works to diversify the products you use to generate an income, because now you're retired. You need to generate income. So having a pillar that creates a guaranteed pension, so like a pension for life, having a just in case pillar with flexibility, and having another one that has your long-term growth, so it can keep up with inflation. So please note that one of the biggest things before people come or chat with us is that they say that, yeah, we're diversified. We have our money at this bank, this financial institution, that. Well, you know, having multi advisors with multiple financial institutions is not diversified. This could become an actual nightmare for yourself, your family members, when it comes time to retirement planning, state and tax planning. So consolidate and use one advisor at one place. Find a trusted advisor. It takes a wide and intricate view of all options available for you when you retire. So you have to have a perfect blend of products and investments, and you can still run out of money if you don't spend well and be smart. So let's look at more probability. Yes, more probability. So how much can I take out? So that's a common question we get. So I'm going to make it easier. And again, these are just numbers to simplify it, that if we had a moderate portfolio and we had $100,000 and we were 60 and we were withdrawing that money for 10 years, 20 years, 30 or 40 years. So this withdrawal rate is what we would be withdrawing from our investments. So if we had 100,000 and we said we're going to withdraw 3%, so 3,000 each year. 10 years, we'd have no problem. 20 years, no problem. 30, no problem. 40, really no problem. But let's move it to the 5%. So 10 years, no problem. 20 years, really still no problem. 30 years, you're starting to get into a little bit of some concerns. And then of course, 40 years, you're concerned. Now let's take it a step further. Let's say 7%. Say if we were putting withdrawing the 7% out. So we know in the first 10 years, it's fine, but we know that in 20 years, we're not. So it's really important when you look at the withdrawal rate. And again, this is simplified. So, you know, you don't want to outlive your money. You don't want to outlive your money. You want your money to outlive you. Oh, we have another question here before I get to that next slide. How many products do you recommend for diversification? Can you have too much? Thank you, Tony. It depends on the size of your portfolio, on what you're actually, you have in that pot. But yes, there's such thing as being, thinking that you're well diversified when you're not. So that's something where you want to look and do an analysis, and there's actually something that you can look at. It's called the correlation, to see if they have a correlation with each other, to see if they're all positive or if the mix are mixed, causative, neutral, are combined in there. So it's a good question. If you want more information or if you want an analysis, you know, my link will be into the chat room, so you could just copy and paste it and you'll have it there. Again, if anybody else has a question, all you have to do is tap, and you have to see the chat, or click and you'll see the chat, and click on it and you can ask a question. But thank you very much, Tony. Let's go to the next slide. So what are all the pre-retirees and retirees? What do they want to know? So maximizing your retirement paycheck is important. So we're going to do a case study. We're going to put this into real time to get everybody to understand what this is all about, and maybe be able to see what the steps are taken. So we're going to be looking at Nicole and Sam, and they're going to be retiring in 2023. She's 59 and he's 58. They only expect to have slightly lower living expenses, but not by much. They have a nice home. They have a cabin on the lake, which they do want to transfer to their only son. And between good savings and inheritance, they have 1.3 million in various accounts, but they're still not convinced they have enough set aside to support them through retirement. So through their 90s. So they're getting a second opinion here. So the first thing is looking at their investment. So Sam has a GIC in his RSP and only receiving 2% rate of return. That would be a flag for me, because a low rate of return in a long-term investment. They have a joint account, 250,000, making 4.7%. So I would flag that as well. And that is because of the fact of, I don't know if they're tax preferred investments. We have Nicole's RSP. We have Nicole's tax-free savings account. I would flag it because at this point in time, it does not look like it's maxed and it's a low rate of return. So we would have a discussion on that. Sam's RSP and then Sam's tax-free savings account. Again, it doesn't look like it's maxed out. So there'd be a couple red flags right off the bat that I would see. So then I'd look to see, okay, this is what their current advisor suggested to them. So draw your RSP early to spread the tax bite over time and avoid high taxes to the estate. Nicole and Sam want to transfer the cabin to their son, but they're going to be paying the outstanding capital gains on it while they're living. And they'll also continue to pay the annual property taxes on the cabin. And they have the GIC that's in the RSP earmarked to pay for this. So their son Al doesn't have any other savings. They don't have any extra income, and they're engaged to someone that they barely even know, which is concerning, which most of us would have, you know, red flags. Would use their, they use their tax-free savings account for annual shortfalls and big lump sums, like for cabins for the capital gain cabin while they're in a high tax bracket. So on your chat, if this sounds good to you, let's press 1. If you're not sure, press 2. Let's see if everybody has the chat going. Again, you just have to scroll, or either touch or scroll your mouse on it, and you'll see that the little chat, and you just have to press your number, press that, a little window will open, and then you can press. Okay, so we see some 2s there. We see not very many 1s, so which is perfect, because unfortunately, the Government of Canada and other financial institutions are not marketing the tax-free savings accounts properly. They say it's a savings account. Yes, you know, it is. However, the tax-free savings accounts are the most tax efficient that you'll ever have. So we don't use them for in and out of savings. It's used for a long-term savings. And if there's an estate, that money should go to the estate because it's all tax-free. Okay, so now let's look at retirement. Let's look at the cash flow of what it would be in 2023. So again, we're going through the plan that they already have. So if you can see their expenses here, so they have $72,000 in fixed expenses. So that would be like utilities, food, transportation, property taxes. So you know that there's fixed. Then you have discretionary expenses of $39,600, and those are retiring, memberships, restaurants. So combined, it's $111,600 a year during retirement. Now let's look at their income. So we know that they're $55,000 of pension income. We know that's $22,000 into in CPP and old age security at age 65. And we know the GIC that they count for paying the towards the cabin is there as well, which is $83,440. So as you can see, there is a gap to fill. So they would require $160,000 in total income because the taxman actually has to have their part, unfortunately. So there is a gap that needs to be filled with withdrawals from their investments. What does that look like? Or what could it look like? Most important of all. So as a senior financial consultant over 26 years and a certified financial planner and a registered retirement consultant, listen to all these credentials, I would be looking at the solutions and I would look at the strategies that would be involved here. So let's look at the strategies. So what's the first one that I would look at is splitting their pension income. That's a no-brainer. And as you get a little bit more involved, if there was a business, a lot of people are missing out on this option. Redeeming RSPs later instead of earlier. Purchasing an annuity to provide guaranteed income instead of the GIC to provide an expensive source of guaranteed income. Optimizing the tax-free savings account, which includes investing in an inline, a variable rate of return, continue to save into the tax-free savings account through their retirement, even if it means taking money from the non-registered or the registered, the RSP accounts. Deferring the redemptions from tax-free savings accounts, and deferring the transfer of the cabin and the payment of the outstanding capital gains while they're living. I can explain the risks of giving the cabin to their son Al now, especially if he's just starting into a new relationship. Very risky. So deferring large sum expenses where possible can increase their net estate significantly. So let's review. Let's put this all together. So their previous plan here, you can see that they'll end up having shortfalls. Nicole and Sam will have shortfalls with their plan. And what is the probability of that? So if we put their information and put it into our software, the probability of that plan is 66%. So everybody that said, that pressed the 2, you're absolutely right, 66%. So if we're looking at this analysis and we say, okay, what can we do? So the clients still have a pension income, they still have CPP, they still have 1.3 million. Now all we have to do is look at their lifestyle expenses and look at how they're going to use their investments and structure them throughout their retirement. So again, I say that they didn't have the greatest advice. So my question to you is that, do you have advice? Do you have good advice? And how do you know? So again, it's important to get the planning. We have another question here from Tina. I plan to retire in 2 years. Am I correct in putting money into an RSP and just invest by not putting money into RSPs and just invest into tax-free savings account? It all depends on your situation, your financial situation, because it's going to end up, do you already have a pension? Do you have, how much RSPs do you have? Are you single? How old are you? Those are many questions that we have to ask. And that requires more analysis on what would be best for you. So again, you'll see in the chat, just you'll see my calendar. You can click on there for more information. Just click and copy and paste into your browser. Thank you. So let's look at the next slide here. So let's look at putting those strategies together. So if we're putting those strategies together, remember the first one that I said, pension splitting? So it's a no-brainer and it increases the probability of 67%. So let's look at the second one. Wow, 83% is a big jump. Well, yes, it is, because we're changing the orders of redemptions or withdrawals from the investments. So we're redeeming from the non-registered first, then we're taking from the tax-free savings account, then the RSP. And as you can see, the lifetime spending has increased, the taxes have increased as well, and the estate has increased from the original plan. But again, 83%, 66 to 83. But we still have some strategies that we haven't implemented. So what if we bought an annuity? So we don't always recommend annuities, especially with interest rates being low, but this was their comfort zone. So we said, okay, we'll take an annuity and we'll look at that. And it changed it. It went from 8 to 89%. So again, it was worthwhile. So now let's look at 92%. So now we're optimizing the tax-free savings account for the long-term investment versus being the second in order for the order withdrawal. And as you can see for your net estate here, how much it's increased. And that's a pretty sweet spot to be. And finally, now we see 95%. So 95%. So this strategy was the last one. So paying the taxes on the cabin at death. Ladies and gentlemen, there are different possibilities on strategies on this topic based on one's personal situation. So this case is going to be based on deferring the capital gains till the last one passes. So after applying all these strategies, now let's look at what they have. So again, let's repeat what we've done. So pension split, we changed the order of the withdrawal. We maximized the tax-free savings accounts for later on in life. We have an annuity and we deferred the cabin being transferred to their son. What did this cost? It created $522,000, so $500,000 more of spending money throughout their lifetime. Pretty sweet. Now let's look at the estate. We created $1,049,000 additional in the estate to pass on. So that is, they got to enjoy more, their estate has grown, and this is after the capital gains have already been paid out. And yeah, you know, their plan went from 66%, which was, we knew that they were going to have a shortfall, to 95%. Huge, huge. It did create $124,000 in taxes, but hey folks, that's less than 10% of your extra spending and estate provided. So looking at all this, would anybody be interested in this kind of planning? Something to consider. So before I discuss our approach, I would like to introduce my team. So we have Chris Wallace, and he's my executive assistant, and he brings 15 years of professional experience in management and board position. He has recently completed his MBA, and he definitely brings a sense of humor to our team. He is a musician, and he plays with the Festival City Winds. He enjoys spending time with his fiancée, Shauna, and his dog, Champ. And then we have Sabine Pirani, and she is my business development coordinator, and she has been part of my team for almost 5 years. Her background is software engineering and has been involved with running businesses in both management and operational positions. And she has her MSc degree in management organizational development. And she brings the universal happy calmness to our team. She loves spending time with her family outdoors in the sunshine. I couldn't do it without them. So when we're looking at our approach, we have our clients in the middle, and we're supported with a team of professionals. We specialize with expertise in tax estate planning, securities, insurance protection, investment lending, business succession planning, and more. And often we'd meet with your other personal advisors, such as your lawyers and your accountants, to put the planning all together. Many investment advisors will only focus on your portfolio performance. So while we know that that's important, but it's only one component on the overall financial well-being of your comprehensive financial plan. So the planning focuses on meeting your needs on both short-term and long-term, and creating certainty in all areas of your financial future. So these areas, if you can see through here, you know, we're looking at your plan, and we're looking at all the tax efficiencies through strategies. So one of the areas is we look at that managing your cash flow for efficiency over time to maximize tax planning opportunities today and in retirement. Planning for the unexpected, including health and disability risks, so your plan stays on course and does not get derailed. Planning for all major expenses. Maximizing your business, working with other professional advisors, such as your lawyers, your accountants, to incorporate your business in your personal financial plans. Optimizing for a robust and tested retirement plan to reduce concern and risk. Creating financial legacy that matches your goals and desires and helps fulfill them in a tax efficient and meaningful way. Our process, creating your living plan, what we had in the middle. So we explore your current situation. It all begins with a conversation. We learn about you and your current financial situation to help you customize a planning for you and your family. We clarify goals and objectives. Every situation is different. Everyone's different. We take the time to explore all your dreams, financial goals, and concerns. We develop a comprehensive plan, so your wealth strategy will be tailored for you and your goals. We provide effective strategies and solutions that address the short-term and the long-term. Customize your investment program. Managing significant wealth requires us to develop a customized asset mix that mitigates risk, seizes opportunities, and minimizes taxes. Implement a holistic strategy. A plan is not a plan unless it's implemented. We activate the recommended strategies which aligns with your personal comprehensive plan. And proactively monitoring and adjust. So as life and family circumstances change, we work with you to identify and present relevant scenarios before adjusting your plan. So this evening, we are offering a no obligation, no pressure consultation. It's up to you. It's personalized advice on strategies to maximizing your retirement, your top 3 strategies to reduce income taxes in retirement, top 2 strategies to lower the impact of volatility of your portfolio right now, and how making emotional investment decisions in volatile markets can swing your annual returns by a huge margin. So we have the link inside the chat that you can copy and paste and put in your browser. It goes right to my calendar. We have, let me explain exactly what happens is that the meeting will be one-to-one, and it will be virtual, something similar to Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or other means. And the appointments will be on first come, first basis, because we're only accepting 10 new families this year. And we can go, so again, if this is something that you'd like to do, please go into the chat, and my calendar's there. When we meet, it's just a meet and greet. So it's like a 2-way interview process. So do you trust Brenda? Do you test her knowledge? Do you test her advice? So that's very important, especially when you're doing financial planning. And then I'll be interviewing you. Do you believe in financial planning? It's mandatory for all my clients to have a living plan, which is monitored at least once a year. So the initial meeting would be anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. And then after that, there'll be several, one and up, depending on your complexity, to build a living plan. So without further ado, I'm going to go and answer a few more questions here. So again, if you'd like to go onto the chat, if you just click on your screen or touch it on your screen, you'll see the chat. Just press it, and you can ask your question. So can I have can I have an appointment and not become a client? Yes, you most definitely can. So yes, you can have your no obligation consultation. You don't have to become a client, not at all. We are here to educate and to provide the information to you so you're making great decisions. So your retirement will be the best retirement you'll ever have. So if you have any questions that you did not want to ask on the chat, feel free to book into my calendar, which is on the chat. Again, you just have to click on there and copy and paste it into your browser, and we shall see you. So it's been my pleasure. Everybody have a safe, healthy evening, and we hope to see you soon. Bye for now.